at the federal level, and No Child Left Behind is an example of this, I think the biggest thing that people take into account is the standardized exams, right? If whether the students go up or down, that's really like the sole thing nowadays that they're judged on.
Other questions, comments?
Before they get the tenure or after that? But I'm asking because, I mean, if they're more creative before they actually get the tenure, this would mean that for them, like, this is an incentive to be creative and to actually work hard. And if this is the case, I mean, probably there are much better ways to actually provide incentives. Why do they have to work for 10 years, like, just to, in the future, with the potential to get the tenure after years and years of hard work? Probably it's much better to, I mean, to give them bonuses or, like, like on a much shorter basis. I mean, or it's the other way around. I mean, they're more productive after they actually get the tenure. Then what's the point of giving them tenure? Actually, well, providing less quality after the.
I mean, with the way the incentive structure works in the status quo is that if they have proven to be more effective within that rubric, if they make their student be better at a test, like have like 5 points higher, congratulations, you get a little bit higher raise. Like, I think that. Is that kind of address your question?
Yeah, but basically my question was like, do you think that they are more innovative before they actually get the tenure or after that? I mean, what do you think they're doing their best?
I think a good analogy is like you see the speed of like how grad students walk, and then you watch a professor, right? There's a lot less. There's less incentive to do things like always, like yeah, they're gonna not work as hard.
Because if they get better after they get the tenure, I mean, in the sense that.
But I mean, I'm going to disagree with you. Obviously, I've been doing that for a little bit. But I think that many teachers go into the profession with the philosophy and the hope to actually benefit their students that they're going to be better prepared. And I think once they actually get the position where they don't have to just go line by line with that rubric, then they're not just going to go like, hey, I no longer care about these kids. Like, whatever, they can go off and do whatever. I'm going to sit here and drink. Like, no, I think most professors and teachers are going to say this is now an opportunity to break the mold that I actually see as actively detrimental to the students under my care.
After they get the tenure.
After they get the tenure. I think beforehand, they're going to have to, yes, like any teacher, kind of follow that mold to a certain extent in order to be seen. But I think their passion is going to show through, that they're going to probably try to find ways to not only teach the rubric, but also most effectively teach their students in the way that's going to be most beneficial to them. And people who treat it as a job will probably just be like, here's the rubric, good luck.
All right, one last.
Program, and professors will always say, or give us the advice of not speaking out as much or not giving your own opinion as much before you have tenure. Once you have tenure, you can put in your input and you can do all those things that you want to do and be more creative because you have secured placement in your position. So how do you think that affects teachers before tenure?
I have a quick question. Do they explicitly tell you this?
Yes.
I mean, are they tenured?
That's pretty bad.
What else? No, God. I think that on either side of the house that's debated, I think that teachers before tenure, or teachers on his side of the house, because like they're not going to have tenure ever if he gets his way, that they're always going to live under that fear of expressing what they either believe or what they think is right, and what they think the child should actually be taught. Mm-hmm. So I think that tenure is not an exactly perfect system to be able to allow teachers to allow that creativity within the classroom, because admittedly, before tenure, they are at that risk. But it is better than not having the ability to do that at all and constantly living under the fear that I feel that adding my 2 cents within this educational period of time is going to get me fired. I think having tenure is a good, it's like not, as I said, not perfect, but is a good way to allow, once you get tenure, the ability for that creativity to flourish within the classroom.
All right.
Just to address the question, there's probably a reason your teachers tell you that, so you can get that far, but I don't think it's really as shaky as they said. And like teachers do have recourse, such as like the teachers union and the court often. And I don't think it's really like as bad as I'm surprised they explicitly tell you that, but yeah. That's the point.
Speaker, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here tonight. Before starting with my main arguments, I'd like to say a few words about the difference between public schools and private schools and why this debate is especially about public schools. As we know, usually people who go to public schools are those who can't really afford to go to private schools. And unfortunately, there is a really big rate of people who drop out of school in these public institutions. So this is really important to bear in mind while talking why art, music and drama are important for this good or maybe better public education. My 2 points are connected to this, that such kind of art classes actually can engage students more into the learning process and can help them develop in such a way that they do better in the other classes too. And this overall could improve the quality of the education that they have. If we start with the point how actually art, music and drama can engage students. It doesn't really matter what the classes would be about. Would it be about creating something like a painting or making a movie or even sometimes just studying about art? These are all activities that require for students to be creative, to act more, to express themselves. And this is something that it's not just, in these cases, it's not just enough to listen and to memorize. You need to be really proactive, which actually tells students, although you might be imperfect, we need to see what you have inside yourself, you need to present yourself, which not only makes students more active in this learning process, makes the studying not so boring for some of them, but also helps them accept themselves the way they are, and actually in most cases get joy from creating something and from being artists, from being who they really are. But it's not just about being who they are, because all these classes also can help them develop themselves, first of all intellectually. There are scientific researchers in Princeton University that students who have been doing music classes or have been playing a musical instrument can actually perform better on LSAT courses, on LSAT exams, which proves that students who do music can be better in math, but not only. Our cognitive behavior can significantly improve after having such kind of activities connected to art, drama, music. So our brain actually can perceive information better. Doing art is a really good way for taking a break from all the other studies. But also it helps us develop personally, because all these activities are involved with many positive emotions, and having positive emotions at school can actually make you go to school more often or be more more eager to give more in the school, and the more you give, the more you get. And when we talk about school as an institution, we should not forget that school is a place where people get together and develop socially, usually through such kind of artistic activities. Many classes get together more easily and people get more relaxed to talk to each other. Thank you. So these are actually those ways in which art can make a school a better place and make students feel more comfortable being in school.
All right, I thank the speaker for her case, and now call the honorable leader of the opposition to open the case for the side out.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to remind people that everything comes at a cost. And usually, within like the 6-hour workday that a student has, individuals must partition their time among multiple academic avenues. At the end of the day, we believe on-side opposition that like this time is inadequate to also supply for externalities such as drama, music, and art. And why is this? I think at the end of the day, we need to realize that we do come from like privileged and improved school systems within New Jersey, or from like very like higher tier public schooling education. But most public schooling education is localized and is finite. And when you get a C in those school systems, usually that's a mark of accomplishment based on the education, not a mark of failure, as like many of us have internalized. Why is this important to understand? At the end of the day, we need to realize that funding, when it is actually divided, and when time is actually divided so much, we don't actually give our students the proper education, the proper faculties to actually master the basics. These basics are requisites in order to actually become a good citizen, in order to actually be an individual understanding of the democratic process, in order to be an individual who actually can properly interact with the community at large, and in order to be an individual who can function well in his job or in their future and have good job prospects in the future. Why is this important? Because at the end of the day, America is a modernizing economy which requires more individuals who are specialized. Individuals who actually have the capacity to engage in the economic system and who have secondary and higher tier educations. But what ultimately happens is when you divide this funding, when you try to siphon it off into these externalities, these individuals lose crucial factors that are important to their education. They might not be as well off in math, or reading, or writing, and at the end of the day, that's going to cost them their LSAT scores. Now, we hear a lot of very interesting things, which are that musical classes lead to cognitive improvement. Now, I actually place a large amount of doubt on this because usually the systems that can afford to actually input musical classes or art classes, which are extensive in early high school or elementary school, are systems which are actually well funded and actually have a disproportionate teaching quality. So this cognitive development could come off of that. But we would also tell you that there are alternatives to musical school, like music and drama, which actually are left out. I believe philosophy and other actually fundamental teachings, such as ethics, are much more important to imbibe within students than music and drama. But I also believe comparatively it doesn't teach you much. Honestly, when you were in elementary school, did you learn that much from playing a recorder or making a papier-mâché ball? Not in comparison to the things you could have learned or the cost that you actually had that at. But we also hear that this actually introduces many positive emotions. I would say that's fine. At the end of the day, that's what recess is for. These children have many alternatives in schooling, and I would even actually be happier having shorter school days so children would be happier, and giving the extra money to fund teachers who actually teach math, science, and actually giving those individuals a proper base. We believe that students would be happier in this scenario anyway because they'd get out of school at 1 as opposed to 2:30 or 3. Finally, we hear that it's very important to have these facilities for social development. I don't think this is very unique. I think at the end of the day, we actually have facilities that encourage social development, such as recess, or encouraging group interaction. But I don't think playing the recorder actually encourages social development. I don't think even if we did manage to finance music, art, and drama properly in every single elementary school, we would do it to an extensive extent. And at that point, we wouldn't actually be imbibing a significant education upon these individuals. We would actually just be doing everything half-assed. And why is that harmful? Because ultimately, we need to have a proper education for all our children, and we need to focus on the basics when funding is finite. We happily oppose.
Thank the speaker for his remarks, and now I would like to recall his opponent to continue the case for the government.
Thank you. If we start with the point that obviously having such kind of art classes would be expensive, and when we include them in the program, it has to be measured to what extent the other hours in the other classes will be reduced. Well, research also shows that children who are doing art do not only develop themselves better, but they also start learning faster. Imagine that you have 4 classes of history, maths, literature. At 11 o'clock, usually children get really, really bored and really tired of all these things, so their brains simply cannot continue memorizing or using these kind of logical thoughts, so they need some kind of breakout. Why should we let them go out of school earlier when you can actually engage them in some sort of art activities and help them take this break in this way? And after that, give them again another classes in philosophy, maybe art or whatever. If we also consider this, that public schools have maybe lower funding and such kind of art classes would be rather expensive. Yes, this is true. These classes are extra. They're not really necessary for a person to have education. But children who go to public schools usually can't really afford to go to extracurricular like activities with another art teachers. So a good public school should give them the chance to experience all the areas of the knowledge and give them a taste of different kind of things in such a way that they can decide whether they want to develop themselves in this area. Because you say that it is important for people to have this education, to go in the market and to do good and job interviews and take part in the economic system, but does it mean that we don't need people who are good at music? Don't we need musicians? Don't we need artists and whatsoever? And can those people be from those families who go to public schools? Another point that the opposition talked about was about the cognitive improvement of children and in what way philosophy, ethics, and so on, all these humanities can help improve it. Here I just mentioned that music, art, and art are in some way included in children's activities, even in the kindergarten, which shows that the mere development of the people is not just about the type of information they get into, but about the senses that they perceive it with. It's one thing to do something with your hands and to craft it, and another thing just to read it or to listen to it. It's all about the way we see, our perceptions, mechanical, hearing, and so on. As for the positive emotions that I addressed, yes, there are other ways to engage students in such kind of positive emotions and activities, but some of them are not really educational. While our classes in art, drama, and music are after educational, and they improve the understanding of children about the world they have. And as a whole, they keep them in school, which is really important to mention about this point of engagement. It's one thing to get out of school and have free time. Usually children wouldn't go to play a violin in their free time. They would go on the street, or they would go just around hanging around and trying to socialize in those kinds of ways that in most of the cases usually may not bring them positive results, but on the contrary may cause them troubles. And as for the point about their development, it's really vital to know that such kind of facilities that can be placed in schools can really be found outside of school, which sometimes includes some equipment that schools need to have. Thank you.
Thank the speaker for her remarks, and now I would like to recall her opponent to give a 6-minute closing for the opposition.
When we're arguing about excluding art classes, we're not saying that any artistic expression is excluded. I actually remember in high school or in middle school, I was actually forced to do more art outside of the art classroom than in it, from panoramas or little shoebox displays to what have you. The point here being is that this expression can be fostered in regular classrooms, and we actually don't need these artistic classrooms in the first place. So students can learn faster anyway by doing artistic expression within these educational faculties. But we would also tell you that ultimately the perception that students can't afford to do extracurricular art is sort of absurd. We live in a very modern age when there is a very low peak of access to these faculties. For example, I could go on the internet and learn how to actually draw well or actually paint well, and I don't actually need a teacher to do so. At the end of the day, these individuals demonstrate interest. It's not like the public has a requirement to finance it. Why? Because taxpayer dollars usually go to things that are required to make individuals good citizens. Things that are required for good citizenship are abilities to actually comprehend and actually work within society. And here's how art falls short. There is this perception on government that if you learn how to make this paper-mache ball, if you learn how to play a recorder in elementary school, you're suddenly going to become that great Van Gogh. I'm going to dispute that straight up. No one actually becomes a great artist from doing this. No one becomes a great musician from doing this. They become those things by taking the time and effort outside of school in order to actually learn about these avenues. Why is this important? Because realize that while a few, like certain number of students might have a proclivity towards being great artists, you're taking away the time from other students and their capacities and their capabilities and their requirements. And what are these requirements? Certain students might be borderline failing. Other students might need extra time working in math or sciences. And what you're saying is that these things aren't important in comparison to like art and in comparison to like art and music and drama. We would tell you that these things supersede art and music and drama because the ability to write well, the ability to understand language, the ability of a disabled student to actually have time and incorporate like basic fundamental skills as opposed to art, music, and drama is necessary in order to actually have those students well off in the long term. So like, here's the question at the end of the day. What are we going to do with our like school systems and how can we better them? Do we actually have any like good benefit from these artistic programs? I don't believe so. I believe it comes at the cost of like basic and centered education of these students, such as the ability to actually be good mathematicians, readers, and writers. And then the question is are these art programs actually going to have an enormous benefit in the long run? We don't believe that either. We believe that if you actually diverge funding and actually take away from math, reading, and writing, these art programs won't actually be that great. They'll probably be like lackluster, half-assed programs which actually don't help these individuals in the long term. And it's something that like government fundamentally didn't actually oppose or answer. That most art programs, especially in elementary school, middle school, and high school, don't have the proper funding in order to function properly. So at that point, you're failing teaching individuals both art, drama, and music, and at the end of the day, you're not giving them the proper basic centered education they require. So here's the last question. Could we be doing other better things? Because I think that ultimately, here's the problem with like society at large. We actually think that the basic skills are the only things required for a good education, but those aren't the only things required for a good education. We believe that children have a very vivid imagination and can like basically introduce themselves to art or drama or like music in the long term. But here's what they don't have a proclivity towards introducing them to: an understanding of ethics, an understanding of what it means to be a good citizen, and a complete and holistic worldliness that is completely lacking from our primary education today. Why? Because most individuals just perceive the law as like the law. They don't understand the basis behind it. We live in a democracy nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, and the basic idea behind a democracy is that you need to be able to criticize your government. But individuals don't have any moral intuitions or ethical intuitions which they've been taught in order to allow them to criticize said government. What's the distinction here? You could be teaching these individuals art, you could be teaching these individuals drama and literature, but it's at the cost of other things, such as teaching them ethical classes, teaching them worldviews, how to interact as citizens, teaching them basic citizenship and what obligations they have to their society. Because at the end of the day, we also live with a government that watches us, which we also need to watch. And that's something that we fail to do on our educational system, like within our educational system as a whole. So, what do we have? We have lackluster art classes, which are never actually going to give us long-term benefits, versus the notion that we could channel this funding into basic education or more holistic education, which gives us ethical training and understanding of the world around us. I believe the answer is very clear, and it doesn't bode well for the artistic community. We happily oppose.
Thank the speaker for his summation, and finally recall his opponent to close the round with a 2-minute summation for the government.
Thank you. When we talk about regular classes and why these regular classes in art are important, we can't really say that a child that knows nothing about drama could demonstrate interest in that. How can you know that you like cheesecake when you never tried cheesecake? How can you go on the internet and look for a recipe for doing that when you never know it exists? Art has so many demonstrations, there's so many things out there that usually citizens don't know about because nobody really took the time to tell them about. So that's why school is the place where children have to get to know the world around them. And when we talk about citizenship and our overall personal development of the people who go out of school, let's not forget that aesthetics, one of the big philosophical drives, is actually expressed in art. And while studying art, even this includes art appreciation. Children can see what is beautiful. Children can see what is right. And especially by doing something beautiful, they can see what is actually the joy and the pleasure of being a person who is not just a consumer, but a person who is an artist. Although this kind of art might be expressed later in their job as an accountant. For all this reason, art classes can actually have long-term benefits for the children because they develop them holistically, overly, as personalities. They don't just develop all of their senses and maybe all of them talents, but also show them what has been done in the past, what they can do in the future, and some of the cases they can actually show that the world is not just about making money, but about making something good for the society, doing something beautiful that stays years and years after that. Because while studying some nice musical pieces that were made centuries ago, you could say, wow, this is a person who really contributed to our society. So I want to be like him. Thank you.
I thank the speaker, close the round, and invite both sides to cross the floor and shake hands.
About it. I care about the songs I wrote 2 years ago or 5 years ago that had nothing to do with the teacher from the public school. Even my teachers outside they don't really care if I compose, but I do that because I'm obligated to improve the field, and some other artists do also.
I understand your point that it's really important how those arts classes are taught, but I have a completely opposite experience in my school. I was in a public school and I had a wonderful teacher in art, and I didn't learn how to draw or how to paint or whatever, but I learned that whatever I do with my own hands, it can be a piece of art, and it gives me a super big accomplishment. And since now I really love doing art, just for my own pleasure, and I feel really good about myself after that. And this was a person who just told me, you're good enough, so whatever you do, that's good for you. And later in life, it gave me also self-confidence to be who I am because of this teacher. Because he supported me.
The artists that I listened to encouraged me, and my friends encouraged me to write better songs. The teachers at my public school didn't really encourage me to go write better songs.
So I think at the end of the day, there is a distinction between an art class and a teacher itself. A teacher can be good and bad, and a shittier, great in an art class, and they can inspire you to do different things. Like a history teacher doesn't have to only inspire you to do history, they can inspire you to be a good scientist. I don't think there's a really inherent connection there.
Our history teacher can encourage us to write better songs for all we know.
Yeah. Terry.
I just thought it was interesting that both of you saw art as a secondary concept, because if you think back to when you're a young child, it serves as a sort of necessary conduit to learning in general. Like when you're a little infant, toddler, you can't start explaining to this being that doesn't even understand your language how things work. You need to know that, hey, yellow and blue, they make green. There's a science to that, and there's a progression into the more, I guess, scientific things that you find, or in your argument, more useful. But you would have never gotten to that point if you didn't have that language of art to bridge that gap.
I never actually did any art when I was younger, so I don't know what you're talking about. I might be cold and dead inside. I mean, sure, it might be important, but those classes and lessons also came from early panoramas and stuff like that. When I'm saying don't have art classes and don't have drama or music classes, I'm not saying scourge them from kindergarten. They at the point where they are crucial mechanisms towards teaching children and younger children at that, then we're totally fine with doing that because they actually are more suited towards an ends. If you're finger painting about social studies, or if you're finger painting in order to learn the ABCs, then that's a conduit of communication which is necessary, but it's not art for art's sake. That's something that we're not interested in. On our side, at least, I'm forced to defend this side.
Yeah, in addition to that, there's a certain progression to it. As you get older, it kind of surpasses what the other subjects contribute to. For example, a lot of the disciplines like mathematics, science, you kind of have to sit down and like learn the basics by yourself. But the thing about art like encourages a lot of teamwork. And
Does
that's
it?
something.
It might.
How?
It might encourage.
How?
Okay. Elementary schools with the personal experience of an individual.
Some of them may do better than others. Then what is actually the difference between this kind of class and a class in literature when you have to write an essay and someone may be doing better than you? Or you say, why should I write this essay? I don't like writing. Isn't it about being creative again? So I think that the matter is not about pushing children to have 10 hours per week in art. It's not even about pushing them to do drama while they don't like it, but it's about giving them the opportunity in public school to have this kind of access to these classes.
Quick response. You can't tell what good literature or good writing is in elementary school. It's not like you won't even read other people's papers when you're little. If you do, it might discourage you a lot. But like when you see a painting of another kid and it actually looks like a hippopotamus and yours is a circle with sticks on it, you're gonna be like, I suck at this, I know it.
Who says that that's wrong? That's a bad painting. Come on, go to mama. Look at that.
Gordon in the back.
So your argument seems to be that because art isn't perfectly taught, we just shouldn't teach it at all, and because some people might feel alienated because they aren't good at it, and because it's a comparative activity.
There are a lot of arguments, Gordon.
Yeah. Basically what I'm trying to get at is, aren't all these arguments literally applicable to any subject being taught in schools, and shouldn't we just thus disregard mathematics, calculus?
Yeah, totally. But the argument is, the case is about priorities. Priorities being like, it's very easy to mass teach mathematics. Very hard to mass teach art, music, drama. What? Effectively. Effectively, yeah, actually. You just like write it on the board, or like you show examples. You can actually relate to individuals. Like it has a much greater educational foundation at the same time, which is historically based, as opposed to artistic education, which doesn't have as like much wide berth, especially for elementary school teaching and like mass teaching.
Henry, and then you.
All right, so kind of a two-pronged question. One, would you say that having like a student connected to a teacher who is like an art teacher or a music teacher be more effective when they actually want to learn art? And I think that ultimately, if that is true, which I actually believe it is, don't art classes or music classes and so on act as an effective medium for students who are really passionate about art or music to actually be connected with it?
Well, yes, this is one of the points why I believe there should be this kind of access to the teacher. And okay, we all talk about the ideal case when you have good teachers. We don't talk about bad teachers, but I totally agree with you.
Yes and no. First, yes, a private teacher teaching you art is much more effective, will probably get the message across and help you develop your own style. Sadly, that's not the case. Sadly, if you do actually try to basically use this method or like try to create like a public school in an average school across America, then you'll probably have an art teacher trying to manage 30, 35 kids at least in a classroom. And there's no way that that teacher can make that personal connection required with every single one of those students and actually teach them to an equal extent without developing them like favoritism in the short span of 45 minutes. That's impossible.
The classes for those fields in middle school didn't really encourage me to want to write better songs. So if I want good influence to do better in songwriting, I mean, doing math makes me feel better, and then I want to write songs. But I might, I have to know what I'm doing to be doing good at math. And then I think it's well that my parents had on the radio some artists that were accomplishing something. I'm not going to say any artist names right now, but if anyone wants to talk to me about it later, I read some things about that as well. That's two of the artists that I listened to taught swimming to like middle school students. One of them taught it in the military, and everyone that they were friends with was, they were in middle school while there was World War II going on. So, and art, making paper mache Brontosaurus didn't encourage them, I don't think, to make all their albums. Not that I agree with every word on the album, but still.
Any questions?
Any other questions or?
I'm here all day. I can argue. Come on.
Yeah.
If for students who are mastering the skill of reading, if drama is one way that they can express and perform their literacy skills, then why wouldn't that be an appropriate class or course to take for a student, say, I guess anywhere from K through 9, to perform literacy skills and language skills?
So I really, really want to hammer down this concept of finite funding, because everyone's like, money comes magically. Most teachers get paid $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year, and lower end school districts it goes below that. Usually they don't have enough textbooks, pencils, all of those things. And when you're saying add another facility, you're saying include this drama for and pay this enormous sum of money so these individuals, these very few individuals, can actually gain benefits. A public good is supposed to give something beneficial to everyone in society. It shouldn't be specialized towards certain individuals. Like, honestly, we could have not legal teachings, but we could teach cooking in schools. I mean, and have extensive home ec for from freaking kindergarten to 12th grade. But God knows everyone cooks, but it's not something that everyone wants to engage in or everyone finds necessary.
We need to learn how to cook whole grains too. Everyone.
So, those individuals might find that beneficial. If so, in high school, I have no problem with there being electives, like drama classes and stuff like that, which individuals can elect to take in order to be more fully expressive. But those electives aren't something that the government should mandate, that local systems should mandate to exist. It's something that should be based upon self-determination by local school boards and by local school committees based on the funding they have and their capacity to appropriate it. Because insinuating that they should be mandatory insinuates that they're of equal importance to other subjects which are much more basic and much more fundamental, which I don't believe will ever be the case.
I would just add that yes, it is a really good situation when there are electives, and it might be good for those who have greater interest to choose them as electives, but it should also be considered that even maybe as part of the curriculum in literature, there might be some drama activities or even some little amount of drama classes, even if this is not for the full semester but just for part of it, just to show what it is like.
So it's not necessarily the subject itself, it's the method of the way it's taught that's at issue. Is that correct? Just to clarify.
So it is the subject, it is the method. There are multiple reasons why it's just generally a bad idea. It's very hard to actually properly finance proper art education in public schools. It's true. It's also very hard to teach art well. God knows so many people are alienated by it day after day because you try to package it into this just universal notion of play that recorder, make that paper mache, let's do a drawing this week, and we have a schedule. So it's not really externally expressive of what an individual wants to do, which is the entire point of art. You do whatever the hell you want, you draw whatever you feel is beautiful, and if you don't want to make that goddamn clay basket, then and draw instead, and the teacher should be fine with that, but no teachers ever are. And whenever you're creating that education, it's going to be at a loss to something else, like education for children with disabilities, or education for children who actually have much more fundamental needs, or need an equivalent education in order to actually come up to par. So there are a lot of problems.
Well, the main idea is whether having such kind of art classes, be it music, drama, or whatever, whether this makes the school better, whether it will make the public schools better. So I don't really think that methods could be a huge subject of this debate just because we have limited time, and considering the methods, they're so complicated in different types of arts. And, yeah. Although we also talked about that, it's inevitable.
Okay, last question.
Also, I am remembering some of the items that someone told us to make in first grade or something, and it's really not enriching to our society at all. I mean, the piece of clay or some Crayola products that were on a piece of paper that's from some manufacturer. I don't think that enriched our society. But I mean, as I advertise the songs that I've been making since I wanted to put my work together, whether I had a teacher or not at the time, that I'm pretty darn proud to advertise as much as I can. And I mean, then look at the performing program at the school, like this institution itself. I mean, is that's what encourages our songwriters to accomplish something, or that encourages? I mean, it's still, our field is still trivialized. So I don't think the performing arts program at even this institution or Princeton.
Do you think this institution trivializes the artistic field?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so. Why?
Because
How?
I've no one from this institution, or certainly no professors at Mason Groves, were returning my phone calls telling them that I want to accomplish something in the field, and then calling me back, good, we want you involved in a program here. We'll give you a ride. We want to give you they could care less. They wouldn't listen to 1/10 of a second of my songs.
So
how could they tell that the students that are actually in their classes are really wanting to develop or accomplish something? I don't know about that.
I mean, proper encouragement might be a problem, but
I guess.
for an institution to holistically trivialize a field is a bit extreme. I think
Well,
the
that's the
important,
result of it.
it might be a peripheral result, but I think the important part to understand is like trivializing a field is mocking it or like completely undermining it.
I think they are.
I think they totally just like. I think if Mason Groves does anything, it's just teach the fundamentals or basics in order to actually be capable of succeeding in an artistic field by giving you the tools required to like expand as an artist.
Well, that would be
like,
good. No, I agree with that. Of
And like,
course.
here's
That's
the
why
thing.
I have 3 teachers.
There are hundreds of students in the school, hundreds of students who like could be doing the same things, and like ultimately it's upon ourselves to actually succeed and like get opportunities, not upon our teachers to give them to us, because there are multiple other people who could be giving that teacher that same phone call, and like the idea that they're responsible for like basically making every student into an artist is not part of their responsibility, or it doesn't really trivialize the field. Their responsibility is to give students the tools to become artists. And
Well, that also.
Well, I think we're going to leave it there. So I want to thank Katerina and Arby for the debate.